Welcome back to Terrace Talk. It's another big game for Liam Manning and Norwich City this weekend after an East Anglian derby loss at Carrow Road. And I think it will be quite an interesting one based on how that played out in the summer. But it's also obviously a big opportunity for Norwich to get, well, first of all, a win on the board at home, but also a win against Championship opposition. I'm delighted to be joined by Ani Harish, who's a YouTuber and Bristol City fan, to preview this weekend's game. First of all, Ani, thanks very much for joining us. I mean, tell us a little bit about Bristol City's start to the season so far and what it's looked like.
Well, I didn't really know what to expect coming into the season. I think that's probably a fair assessment. I've been reasonably impressed with what I've seen. It's been a few weird games in there. And obviously these 4 games have not been great sort of on paper, for without a win, losing at home twice, not ideal, but the performances haven't really been that bad. And if you look at the underlying metrics, we're still one of the best teams in the league going forward. So honestly, yeah, I've been reasonably happy with how the season has started, and what could have been a lot more turbulent from Manning to Stroua has actually been quite smooth. And yeah, we'll talk more about it, but yeah, I've been reasonably impressed.
Yeah, we definitely will, specifically on Manning and obviously the way that he left Ashton Gate in the summer. But I wanted to ask you about Stroua because obviously he's come in as a head coach, I think, with quite a lot of pedigree. Probably not loads of Championship fans will have heard of him or will know too much about him. But it feels like, particularly in the first few games of the season, he started quite well. So what do you make of him as a manager, sort of his style of play, his communications, things like that? How has he started as the new head coach?
Well, it's very different to what I've seen for the last 18 months. Prior to that, very different. Bit refreshing, bit sort of, oh God, up and at 'em, pressing,
Yeah.
high intensity, get the ball forward, 2 big bulking centre-backs, head it, kick it, clear it, get the ball down the right, get Emil Rees running, get Mehmeti and Twine on the ball quickly. It's been quite sort of front-footed and aggressive. And it's been quite good. Obviously, there have been defensive moments of, I think I can say that. But there have been some questionable defensive moments. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But generally, I think it's worked. I've been quite impressed by how Struber's sort of not gone in and completely changed and ripped up everything. We didn't do too much in the summer. We didn't lose too much. Didn't add too much.
Yeah.
We added, I'd say, fairly nicely in positions. Key positions: goalkeeper, striker, midfield, centre back to a certain degree with Atkinson coming back. And I think we've upgraded in most of those positions as well. So he's got, I'd say, a decent base to work with, and he's done well with it so far. It's just about now, how does he react to what was, okay, a couple of unlucky kind of defeats where we missed chances, 3 set play goals against Oxford, missed a few big chances against QPR, lost that game 2-1. We've lost a couple of coin flip games. How does he now turn that around? How do we, score more goals? How do we make ourselves a little bit better defensively? How does he get, more out of that midfield, more out of those wing backs? And I think we'll see that as the season develops. But no, quite like Stroua. I was a little bit unconvinced. Honestly, I'll say this. That's probably purely because that was probably more because of Manning leaving rather than anything to do with Stroua. But I was a little bit sort of questionable. Sort of questioned the appointment a little bit. But yeah, I've been turned pretty easily. Doesn't take a lot to turn me. But yeah, I've been happy, as I'll say again. I've been happy with what Struber's shown.
And you mentioned, obviously, Liam Manning leaving in the summer, which probably most Bristol City fans weren't particularly pleased with after the season you had last season. So I just wanted to kind of see what you thought the reception would be. I can't imagine it will be a particularly positive one from the away end at Carrow Road.
Oh God, it will probably be less severe because it's at Carrow Road and not Ashton Gate. But my God, it's not going to be. Yeah, it's not going to be pleasant. Look, Liam Manning delivered my sort of best year supporting Bristol City. That's a sort of non-argument. That's a fact, and I'll always sort of be grateful for that. The way he left Bristol City was a little bit weird. It was a little bit weird. It was sort of came out of the blue a little bit, and now stuff has come out in the wash that possibly talking to Norwich whilst we were in the playoffs and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, it's not particularly ideal. And another thing that completely quirked me was after, I think, your lost to Ipswich, he called us Bristol. And I didn't particularly like that either. So yeah, I like Liam Manning. He's not going to get a good reception though from that away end at Carrow Road. Probably don't think you'd expect anything else. But look, he still delivered a great season for Bristol City. On paper, the best year in 17 years, right? But some context, some nuance to that as well. And I think with the context of where Norwich are at the minute and where Liam Manning is at the minute with his current club, I think it would just gives us a little bit more incentive of, can we go there and the knife is in? Can we go there and twist it and really sort of really, twist the narrative and make it seem like a bad decision that he left Bristol City?
Yeah, definitely. I think there'll probably be that motivation on both sides for Manning to prove that he made the right decision, and obviously, as you say, for Bristol City to show that he shouldn't have left them for Norwich in the first place. I did think, even when I was sat in that press conference where he referenced Bristol, I haven't been the manager of Bristol City for 18 months, and even I thought, okay, if the Bristol City fans pick up on that, then they're probably not going to be too pleased. But I'm interested to just quickly go back to kind of when you first heard the news about Manning leaving Bristol City for Norwich. Obviously, Norwich had just finished 13th in the Championship, Bristol City 6th, and had I think from watching them play, particularly against Norwich, obviously, looked like they had a decent squad going forward as well. A couple of nice young players in there. I know there's maybe the investment levels that aren't quite the same between the two clubs, but when you look at the two of them, were you surprised that Manning was leaving them for Championship rivals? Because I think he's done it before, going from kind of League One to the Championship and things like that. But were you surprised to see him going from Bristol City to Norwich?
Honestly, no, because in my head, Norwich are top of the Championship, should be sort of, they're probably the first protocol after the parachute teams, if Norwich aren't in receipt of parachute payments, of directly going to the Premier League. And I'd say we're sort of one below that. So in my mind, I'm going, that's a bit of a step up. If I was in Manning's position and I'm getting promised 30 million worth of spending compared to Adam Randall and Emil Rees, however good they are, 700 grand and on a free transfer, I'm going to Norwich, right? But it did feel like he built something good here. It did feel like this is completely not related to football, but that period where he went on leave because of the tragic passing of his son, it just felt like there was that real connection there between him and the fan base and the club as a whole, and it just felt like a little bit of, really, if it was the Premier League. If it was the Premier League, okay, whatever, go, fine, no problems. It felt like Norwich at that point, they finished 7 places below us. Is there not, scope here to go again and, finish in the playoffs again and give us a real chance of promotion? Because what's more impressive, a promotion to the Premier League with Bristol City or a promotion to the Premier League with Norwich?
Yeah.
Probably Bristol City, right? Purely because we've not done it. But, fair play. I said it at the time, he's going to get more financial sort of muscle. It's a bigger club, Norwich, compared to Bristol City historically. And it's a move obviously closer to home as well, which is, again, not football related. And again, with the period he had earlier that season, completely understood it. But at that point, I probably understood it more than I do now. Purely because of how it's transpired so far.
I think that's fair enough, and there are probably a lot of Norwich fans now wondering how it's transpired this way. But I kind of wanted to get your perspective on where things go from here, because obviously you've seen a Liam Manning side up close that started pretty poorly and then turned things around and ended up qualifying for the playoffs. And Manning actually keeps kind of referencing that in press conferences. He keeps saying he's been in these difficult scenarios before. He's been in that scenario and he's turned it around, and he's seen how that can happen. So I wanted to kind of ask you about how that does happen, because I know the situation's a little bit different. He took over Bristol City in the middle of the season. At Norwich, it was in pre-season, which is probably a major difference. But when you hear about Norwich's struggles and the way that things are going, do you recognise in that what happened at Bristol City?
Can I be honest? No, not really. Not really. I don't think it was ever that bad. If Bristol City are 19th, it's a different thing to when Norwich are 19th in the Championship, right? I don't think it was ever that bad from what I'm hearing or what I'm seeing from Norwich fans. I watched it. I watched all that Ipswich game, and I was like, "This is not a Liam Manning team in the slightest. I've seen a Liam Manning team for 18 months. That doesn't look like it." So I'm going to ignore that first 6 months. Obviously took over mid-season, as you mentioned, and let's just talk about that full season last year. We lost 2 games in a row, back to back, 3-0, either side of an international break. I think it might have been this international break actually. We lost 3-0 at Derby. I was there. That was horrendous. We went up to Blackburn. We changed formation, and we did the exact same thing and lost 3-0 again. And then at that point, I would say the pressure was really, really on Liam Manning. Not necessarily to get sacked, but just because, okay, we need to see something here. And then the game after that, we played Oxford at home, which is obviously kind of a similar thing to this, because that was also the Liam Manning derby at that point. And that felt like, oh God, they could really stick the knife in and twist it on us. We went 1-0 down, chorus of boos at half time. And then he changed it, and we went a bit more direct. We went a little bit more sort of front foot, instead of this sort of passing, trying to work the opposition, break them down. We just went for it a little bit, and we won the game. And that felt like a bit of a turning point. That felt like halftime at Oxford. I always reference that. That felt like this turning point in our season. Then we started getting momentum, and that second half of the season was brilliant. I just think with Manning at Norwich, the expectation is greater. The pressure to deliver, considering what you guys had to go through last season under Yaroslav Torup, where it was a transition season, and it was bedding players in and giving players time, and you don't really want to go through 2 seasons of that. I again will say Manning is a slow burner, but normally you'll start to see signs pretty quickly around now. And if you haven't seen signs of a team that's going to sort of develop and improve and progress as the season goes on, it's probably a bit of a red flag. It was never this bad at Bristol City, though. That is my final point.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially given Manning is kind of, it seems, taking comfort from his time at Bristol City. I found it interesting you said that it didn't look like a Manning team against Ipswich. So what is that, and how did it look different?
Well, Bristol City at our best last year were organised. 3 centre-backs, Dickey, Viner, and, well, whoever was available. And it was solid. It was the 2 wing-backs, and we pretty good and pretty well organised. We pressed quite well, which is one thing I did notice in that first half against Ipswich. I was like, oh, yeah, they're pressing quite well. But we never sort of dropped our heads. Even when we conceded, we always sort of kept going. Games were always tight margins. And the away games I've seen from you guys so far, particularly referencing Stoke and Coventry, you can see 50 plus shots in both those games combined, which I'm going, that doesn't happen. Look, Manning can be pragmatic. Manning can be a little bit sort of, if you want to use a better term, boring away from home. It can be a little bit sort of pedestrian to watch at points. Reasonably effective, especially at home. We were really good. And that's what surprises me as well. 5 defeats in a row at Carrow Road. It just felt like, a Liam Manning team, back to your question, is effective. It's defensively solid, presses well without being, low block. It's not defensive per se, low block. It'll press well. It'll use its midfield well, and it doesn't particularly need to be creative. And I know there's been a lot of talk about Nunes and stuff like that. It doesn't particularly need to be creative. We had Knight and Max Bird, Joe Williams, Marcus McGuane in midfield last season. Not particularly the creative type. Scott Twine wasn't really great last season either. So we didn't have sort of a plethora of attacking sort of creative options, and we still were effective. And Manning normally will get the best out of get a midfield working, get the number 10s working, get the striker working. And if that is probably the best word to describe a Liam Manning team. He'll adapt to what he's got at his disposal, and if it's not similar to what he's got at Bristol City, it'll look different. I think pretty much each Manning side so far at all of his clubs have looked different. MK looked different to Oxford looked different to Bristol City. Sort of different expectations as you go along, which probably is one of his better qualities. And that, again, might take a little bit more time for him to figure out and then implement it. But for us, it was hardworking, press well, effective, and be very good at Ashton Gate.
Yeah. I think to be fair with Manning, a lot of those elements maybe are there. They're just not as successful as they have been at Norwich. And obviously, as you mentioned, the home record, that's obviously completely flipped on its head. So it'll be interesting to see whether he can get a first win this weekend, which brings me back onto the game, because I know I've grilled you on Liam Manning for the last 10 minutes or so. But yeah, how do you see this weekend? It feels like neither team is in particularly good form, but how do you see it playing out?
I would say we're not in good form, but again, I'll reiterate, we're playing okay. We're not getting battered or not in games or anything like that. It's been a coin flip game against QPR, bit of a coin flip game against Oxford. I know it's 2 goals, but that one that was really late on.
Yeah.
Should have won at Preston. Ipswich was a good point at home. I'm not going to say I'm confident, because honestly, this is one of the games I looked at on the fixture list going, cannot be bothered in the slightest, honestly. And I am, the narrative going into this, and I have memories of Oxford, and now we're in the Oxford camp compared to this. I'm nervous, and I shouldn't be for a game against Norwich away from home. It should just be like, we'll probably lose because it's Norwich in the Championship, right? But it's just extra incentive, extra narrative. Look, Norwich have got great players. I know you've got injuries, and you're not in good form, and there's a lot of toxicity, but you've got good players, and good players can do anything at any point, and can just turn it on. I'm just hoping that sort of negative feeling you've got compared to the, hopefully we've got a point to prove sort of feeling to Liam Manning of this is what you left, and you left for that. She shouldn't have done that, and I'm hoping, because pretty much I about 8 of the starting 11 that's going to start on this coming Saturday are going to be Liam Manning players. Pretty much all of them are going to be players that played under Liam Manning last season. I think 2 or 3 of them, all 46 games last season as well. So it's going to be a lot of players in there who know exactly what Manning's about, know exactly what a Manning team's going to be about, and well, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get what would be a brilliant 3 points.
Yeah, I'm going to push you for a score prediction in a second. First of all, I'll give mine, because I think when I look at the two teams and how desperately Norwich need to perform, I do think there have been some small positive signs in the last couple of games. You mentioned the pressing against Ipswich, which I thought was much improved. It was decent against West Brom as well. So I think Norwich might get their first point at home. I'm thinking maybe a 1-1 draw, which I don't think would be enough to satisfy Norwich fans. I think they're desperate for a home win, but I think they might just eke out a point at home against Bristol City. So I'm going 1-1. Ani, what do you think?
Before I answer the predictions, because I really, really don't want to answer it, I'll flip it around. If Liam Manning loses this game, do you think that's time up?
I don't think so. I think, well, when you say that, I'm kind of picturing what the scene would be if they lost to Bristol City. His old team celebrating in the away end, while probably there are going to be a lot of boos from around Carrow Road. I think it's going to be one of those, when they do a sort of, not a lap of honour, but the clapping of the fans at the end of the game, that would be pretty unsavoury scenes, I think, if they didn't win that game. But they held on to him after he lost the derby for the first time in 16 years, and they had an international break to find a replacement. So I don't think losing to Bristol City would push him over the edge, but certainly, obviously, the pressure is increasing. I think if you asked a lot of Norwich fans, a lot of them would say it's time for him to go. But I think the problems probably go a little bit deeper than just him. I think for me, the players aren't good enough for the amount of money they've spent on them. I think there are some decent players in there, but when as I'm sure you looked at yourself in terms of the expenditure from Norwich so far this season, you would have expected, without ever having seen those players before, that this is going to be a great squad and that there are going to be some really good players in there. But actually, some of the best players are, Josh Sargent, Kenny McLean, Harry Darling, who've been, Darling was a free signing. McLean's been at Norwich for 7-8 years. And Josh Sargent's been there for 4 or 5 years, and he's been one of the best strikers in the Championship under 4 different head coaches, really. So I don't think the squad has put him in the best place to perform, but certainly he's under pressure. Although I think it might be slightly too early to say that he will be sacked if he loses this game. But yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna have to push you on that score prediction, Ani.
That's not the answer I wanted. I will go. I'll go for a draw because I'm too scared to predict a win live on the internet or on the internet. So I'll go Bristol City to go 2-1 up, and then Norwich to score a scruffy goal in the 96th minute to put a dagger through my heart.
Yeah, I think Manning would, to be honest, be delighted with putting a dagger through your heart if that was the situation. But yeah, thanks very much for joining us. Where can people find more of your content if they want to do that going into this weekend's game?
Yeah, you can check me out on the Ani Harish, wrong finger, on the Ani Harish YouTube channel on YouTube. Don't follow my Twitter because it will probably just me being very, very nervous for the game, unless you're into that sort of stuff and can take pleasure from that. But yeah, YouTube channel, match previews, match reviews, talk about this upcoming game, which is a big one. So yeah, check me out on that.
Good stuff. Of course, we would recommend that. And if you're a Norwich fan who hasn't yet subscribed to the Pinkin, you can do that at pinkin.com/subscribe. Thanks very much for watching this latest episode of Terrace Talk. Let's see what a big game has in store this weekend.